day began like any other for Aram, a tired but determined single father who balanced 2 jobs, sleepless nights, and the immense responsibility of raising his 8-year-old son alone. But by noon, the grocery store was silent enough that even the soft creak of the front door felt loud. The manager's voice, sharp and accusing, cut through the air as a frail girl in a wheelchair trembled under his glare. Her hair was messy, her clothes were worn, her hands shook uncontrollably, and her terrified eyes were glistening with tears she struggled to hold back. The store owner claimed she had taken a chocolate bar without paying. At first glance, it seemed like a simple moment of petty theft, but something about the scene felt deeply wrong, almost haunting. Aram had seen many types of fear, but the fear in that girl's eyes wasn't guilt, it was helplessness. And in that moment, before he even understood why, he stepped forward. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and humanity still being alive in this world, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Aram had stopped by the store only to buy a loaf of bread before heading to his night shift. His uniform was wrinkled, his tired posture obvious even to strangers, yet his heart remained instinctively protective. He noticed that the girl was alone, struggling to navigate her wheelchair in the narrow aisle. A small chocolate bar had indeed fallen onto her lap, but from the angle he saw it, it seemed clear she hadn't intentionally taken it. Her hands were too weak to even pick it up, let alone hide it. Her voice was barely audible, her breathing shaky, and her shoulders slightly hunched as the manager accused her of stealing in front of everyone. The tension grew heavier as a few customers gathered, muttering under their breath, some judging, some simply entertained by the drama. The girl's eyes widened with shame, her lip trembling. She tried to explain something, but the words came broken, almost painful. Aram felt an unsettling twist in his stomach. He had seen that same expression before in his own son when the boy felt cornered or misunderstood. It was the expression of someone who could not fight for themselves. In that moment, he realized she needed someone who would. He stepped in between the girl and the furious manager, gently placing himself as a shield. His voice remained calm but firm, insisting that the manager lower his tone and stop frightening a girl who clearly couldn't defend herself. He explained what he had seen, that the chocolate fell on its own, probably from the shelf, and suggested that it was unfair to accuse her without understanding her situation. The manager scoffed, dismissing Aram as just another tired worker trying to be a hero, but Aram continued standing his ground, refusing to let the girl be humiliated any further. The girl's breathing eased slightly behind him, as though the presence of one kind stranger had softened the suffocating weight of injustice. She whispered that she had no parents with her, no guardian to speak for her. She had only come to buy medicine next door, but had gotten tired and stopped briefly at the store. The manager refused to listen. He demanded that she either pay immediately or face consequences. Aram sighed heavily, reached into his wallet, and paid for the chocolate himself, even though he barely had money to cover his own groceries. The girl looked at him as if he had handed her the world, rather than a 100-rupee chocolate bar. After the confrontation, Aram pushed her wheelchair out of the store to ensure she remained safe. She thanked him softly, her fragile voice filled with a mix of relief and confusion. She explained that she had been paralyzed for months after an accident, and now lived in a shelter since her father had been away for business and unreachable. She tried to smile, but it didn't hide the deep loneliness etched across her features. Aram knelt beside her and offered her a comforting hand, assuring her that the world wasn't as cruel as she thought, that there were still people who cared, even if that care came from strangers. Aram's son, Musa, arrived shortly after, recognizing his father outside the store. The little boy's innocent concern brought a gentle warmth to the otherwise heavy moment. Musa immediately offered the girl half of the candy his father had bought for him, sparking a weak but genuine smile on her face. The three of them shared a quiet moment of unexpected connection. Days passed, but the memory of the girl lingered in Aram's mind. He found himself thinking of her during breaks, wondering if she had anyone looking after her or if she continued facing cruelty alone. His heart wouldn't allow him to forget, so one evening after his shift, he went to the shelter she had mentioned and asked to see her. She was surprised, but her eyes shone with gratitude. She explained how difficult life had become, how she missed her father terribly, and how helpless she felt in her wheelchair. Arham listened patiently, offering encouragement the same way he did with his own child during hard times. He began visiting her regularly, often bringing Musa along. The shelter workers noticed her mood improving, her smiles becoming more frequent, her hope slowly returning. Arham would push her wheelchair around the small courtyard, telling her funny stories from his job to make her laugh. Some days, he simply sat with her in silence so she wouldn't feel alone. Her presence also had a healing effect on him. She reminded him of how much strength lived in vulnerability, how deeply people needed each other. What Arham didn't know was that someone had been searching desperately for her. On a quiet Thursday morning, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the shelter. The man who stepped out looked exhausted, frantic, and wealthy. His suit was tailored, his watch expensive, his demeanor powerful yet shaken. He introduced himself as the girl's father, who had finally returned from abroad after months of emergency business complications. He had learned only 2 days earlier that his daughter had disappeared from their caretaker's supervision, and he had been searching nonstop ever since. The moment he found her, she broke down in tears, clinging to him with trembling arms. The man collapsed to his knees, sobbing as he apologized repeatedly for not being there when she needed him the most. He carried her gently into his arms, holding her as if he was afraid the world might steal her again. The entire shelter watched the reunion in stunned silence. Arham arrived moments later, unaware of what had unfolded. The girl immediately pointed toward him, insisting that her father meet the man who had stood up for her when no one else had. Her father approached Arham with a mixture of gratitude and humility. He explained how powerful and financially secure he was, but how powerless he felt when it came to his daughter's suffering. He admitted that despite his wealth, he couldn't buy the kindness Arham had shown, a kindness that had protected his child when her own world had crumbled. The millionaire insisted on rewarding Arham, offering him money, support, even a better job. But Arham shook his head gently. He didn't help for reward or recognition. He helped because it was the human thing to do, but the man insisted that one good deed deserved another. He asked Arham what his biggest struggle was, what burden weighed on him the most. After some hesitation, Arham admitted that he worked 2 exhausting jobs to support Musa, and that life had been a constant cycle of sacrifice and fatigue. Without another word, the millionaire offered Arham a stable, well-paid position in his company, one that didn't require night shifts and allowed him more time with his son. It wasn't charity, it was gratitude. It was a chance for Arham to breathe again, to rebuild his life with dignity. Arham accepted only when he understood the sincerity behind the offer. Weeks later, the girl's health began improving under her father's care and high-quality treatment. She regained strength in her arms, her smile brighter, and her future safer than ever. She visited Arham and Musa often, the bond between them unbroken. Musa adored her like an older sister, and she treated him like family. Arham found himself more at peace than he had been in years, realizing that sometimes life rewarded quiet kindness with unexpected blessings. In the end, the girl's father publicly cleared her name with the grocery store, ensuring she would never be humiliated again. The store manager, embarrassed by his actions, apologized and admitted his mistake. But more importantly, the world became a little softer because one man, tired, broke, overwhelmed, chose empathy when it mattered. The story became a reminder that kindness rarely makes headlines, but it changes lives in ways nothing else can. It showed that strangers can become protectors, broken families can become whole again, and hearts can heal when humanity steps forward at the right moment. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us continue bringing powerful, emotional stories to life. Before we end, special request, comment below. Kindness still exists if you believe humanity is still alive in people like Arham. And remember, sometimes the smallest act of courage becomes the greatest turning point in someone's life. If you'd like, I can also create cinematic image prompts, search engine optimization description, keywords, hashtags, or title variations for this story. Just tell me.